Hey, what's going on, guys? In today's video, we're going to be going over my power rankings for the 2022-2023 NFL season. These are the first power rankings for week 1. These are not accounting any training camp injuries. These are not accounting any preseason trades. These are just the power rankings as of right now. These are subject to change. Obviously, the 32nd team or the first team, they might not be first or 32nd by the end of the year. But let's get right into it. At 32, we have the Texans. Their roster is just very barren. Unfortunately, they got a lot of picks for Deshaun Watson, but they're the worst roster by far. The Bears at 31 did not like how they approached the draft. They did not have enough receivers. Their defense used to be really good, but now not so much. The Falcons at 30, once again, another pretty bad defense, especially against the run. I know they still have Grady Jarrett and they have A.J. Terrell, but their offense without Matt Ryan now is going to be a little questionable. The Seahawks at 29 traded Russell Wilson, so I have to deduct them a little bit for that. They did get 2 first-round picks, but other than that, their offensive line's pretty weak, and they also have, yet again, a weak defense, losing a lot of free agents. The Panthers at 28. The Panthers are this low because they just have no quarterback. You have Sam Darnold. They drafted Matt Corral, who's not going to start day 1. They do have CMC, but CMC seems like he's been in the infirmary for the past couple of years. And the defense is once again looking... I think they did a decent job getting that defense to be league average this offseason, especially by getting Stephon Gilmore. But they're going at 28 for me. The Giants at 27. Last year, they were one of the worst teams, probably the worst performing offense the back half of the year. I'm going to have them at 27. They cut James Bradbury as well. I think they're trying to get a quarterback. I don't know how good Daniel Jones is going to be. I don't know how good Saquon's going to be. And the Jaguars at 26, I think that they did good in the offseason, but they did overpay a lot of people. And I don't think that their team necessarily is ready. Just like, they're not ready for a huge transition from last year. And Trevor Lawrence had he had a whatever season last year. Led the tied with Matthew Stafford, leading the league in interceptions. But hopefully they have a better year this year. Lions at 25. I really liked how the Lions did in the draft, but once again, they were like 0-9 to start the year last year. The Lions, don't let them fool you. They're still going to be a bad team, even though they're not the worst. They did have a really good draft, and they had a decent offseason, but they're not going to have a Bengals type season. I think they're still a bottom maybe 10, bottom 10, maybe even bottom 5 team, depending on how fast they start the year. For 24 to 17, I have the Jets starting at 24. Had a good offseason, had a really good draft. Of course. But I don't think that the Jets are going to get close to the playoffs, but I think they're going to do better than a lot of the teams under them. I think that they could be a 7 to 8 win team. And I think that 24 is right where, I think that's their perfect fit because they had such a good offseason and draft. Yet it all kind of depends on how Zach Wilson does and how good the coaching transitions. They have a really tough start to the season. So obviously they're going to be so far down the power rankings at the beginning of the year, but they're going to start to climb as the year goes up. And I think that 24 is kind of the average of where they're going to be. The Commanders at 23 had a weird draft, didn't have too much in the offseason. Obviously, you still have Terry McLaurin. They traded for Carson Wentz, who I'm not a big fan of at all. Don't think he can perform in the big moments nowadays after all those torn ACLs and stuff. So I have them at 23. Saints at 22. Their team kind of got decimated after Drew Brees left. Michael Thomas is always injured. He's missed 2 straight years. Jameis Winston is coming off of a torn ACL. And the receiving core last year was just so abysmal. Chris Olave, I thought, was an overdraft. And they lost Teron Armstead. Cam Jordan's getting a lot older, but you still have a solid defense. Did lose Marcus Williams, so I have them at 22. Patriots at 21. I think that this might be the year that the Patriots finally could fall off. Did not have any bit of an offseason, had a kind of a bad draft, and I could see them being 3rd, maybe 4th in the AFC East. And I don't know. They paid a lot to their tight ends. They haven't really done that much, and the receiving core is iffy. And I don't know how high Mac Jones' ceiling goes. Steelers at 20. I had Kenny Pickett is not going to be the day one starter. I've been seeing that a lot. He's not going to be the day one starter, and I think their defense is strong enough to carry them, but it's not strong enough to carry them to the playoffs. Big Ben was keeping them. I think Big Ben was holding them back, but I don't think that Kenny Pickett is ready. I don't think he's ready to elevate this team back to where they should be. But their offensive line is still a little bit weak, and the receiving core is good, and obviously Najee Harris is good as well. But I do have them at 20. Vikings at 19. They have Justin Jefferson, who's on the screen right here. Bad. I wouldn't call their defense too bad, but it's been pretty below average, and even though the receiving core is kind of stacked with Thielen and Jefferson, and Kirk Cousins also. Kirk Cousins is good. He's a top 15 quarterback, and obviously they have Dalvin Cook as well. I think their offense is going to do really well, but I think their defense is going to hold them back. And we saw it with last year. Last year they lost a lot of close games, and I think that's going to repeat this year. So I have them at 19. The Titans at 18. They just lost. I mean, they traded away A.J. Brown. Last year, they had a bit of question marks. I mean, I know they were the first seed last year, but they were just not the first seed. Lost to the Bengals in the playoffs. Their team got worse. And Ryan Tannehill is starting to show signs that he's not going to be that guy forever. So I have them at 18. I think they do take a big step back this year. Also, Derrick Henry coming off of major injury. I have the Dolphins at 17. I think this is low for them because they had such a good offseason, and they traded for Tyreek Hill. I think that the Dolphins could turn heads this year and be a playoff team, but I just need to see it first. I think that the Dolphins actually move the highest up the board, or has the highest potential to move up the board. I just need to see it first. At 16, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys made the playoffs and immediately lost. They haven't won a playoff game since like 1990-something. But other than that, this team still has a good offensive cast. Their offensive line is starting to take a step back from its dominance in the late 2010s. I still think that Dak Prescott is a top 10. I think that he could be a top 10 quarterback. I think that he is in that 15 range. But Zeke has been taking a lot of steps back. Micah Parsons was really good last year. So they're just a middle league team. The Eagles got a hell of a lot better within the draft and a hell of a lot better within the offseason that I have to put them above the Cowboys. Now, do I think that they're going to win more than the Cowboys? I think that they win around the same games. I think they both win like 9 games. And especially in that weak NFC, I think that they both make the playoffs. The Cardinals at 14. Once again, another team, weak NFC. They're also in they're in a strong division. They got the Rams, they got the 49ers. But, I mean, if DeAndre Hopkins comes back and has similar abilities that he did back in like 2019, 2020, and if Marquise Brown takes a step up, if he finally has a breakout year, Kyler Murray continues to play the way he did, the defense does well, I think that they could definitely be maybe a top 4 seed. I mean, they were, I think, the 5th seed last year, and they were actually like 11-0 last year to start. So we've seen this team be good. We just need to see it again. The Raiders got a lot better. Devontae Adams. Raiders got a lot better over the offseason. Obviously, with the Devontae Adams trade, they got Chandler Jones from the Cardinals, who are right above them. I think that the Raiders take a step up, even though they were in they're now in a really strong division, especially with the Chargers and the Chiefs still being really good. They had 10 wins last year, and that's kind of crazy compared to all the bad stuff that happened to them last year. I think that the Raiders are one of the top 15 teams. They could move around this order, but they're a top 15 team. I mean, their offense is going to be really strong this year. The Colts, Jonathan Taylor is a top 3 running back, and they did trade for Matt Ryan, and their defense is also so strong with DeForest Buckner and Darius Leonard. I think that they're a playoff team. I think that they are going to win the division. The Ravens at 11, Lamar Jackson got hurt, and don't know how he'll perform this year, but I had him at my 8 quarterback ranking, and their receiving core is really weak, but their running backs are really good. And hopefully that offensive line can perform a lot better. And their defense last year just got way too injured. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Ravens. The Broncos at 10 traded for Russell Wilson. Jerry Jeudy, I think, is going to be fine. I think Jerry Jeudy is going to be fine. They still got Cortland Sutton, and they have they got a good defense. They lost Von Miller, but they have still Patrick Surtain. They got a good secondary, and I'm expecting them to be a top 10 team. I do need to see them. I think that their offense is going to do really well, but their defense might affect them a little bit. I have the 49ers at 9 just because they're going to be a winning team. They're going to probably be a 10+ win team, and if Trey Lance does what I expect him to do, which is be an above league average quarterback, I think that they could be maybe a top 4 seeded playoff team, especially in that weak NFC. And their defense is so spectacular as well. I just need them. And also they have Deebo Samuel. We're forgetting about Deebo Samuel here. And I think that the 49ers are probably going to be a top 10 team. To finish off the list, we have 1 to 8. And at 8, I'm going to go with the Bengals. The Bengals made the Super Bowl last year. They have probably one of the best receiving cores in the league, if not the best. They got Joe Burrow, and they have a strong, underrated defense. But I don't think that they're going to make it back to the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl slump is a real thing, and oh man, if they have one major injury, if Jamar Chase or Joe Burrow goes down, this team implodes. And I really like what they did with the offensive line. It's just I don't know how good they're going to be because their division is back. The AFC North is back. I mean, the Browns are on this list. The Ravens, I think, are back. I had them at 11. So their wins are going to be a little bit diluted, but I think their stats are going to be the same. I think they're, once again, a playoff team, but I don't know how easily they're going to replicate that magic. I have the Packers at 7. Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. He's a back-to-back MVP. But you lost Devontae Adams, which is such a big blow to this team that I don't think that they're going to be I don't think that statistically or impactfully they're going to be the same team this year. And I don't know how much Christian Watson is going to step up, especially in his rookie year. But Aaron Rodgers is going to make whatever out of anything. I mean, Allen Lazard might even have a breakout year this year. But the defense is strong enough, and Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, so they're still going to be a winning team. They're going to be a top team in the NFC. So I'd have the Packers at 7. The Browns at 6. The Browns traded for Amari Cooper, and they traded for Deshaun Watson this offseason. Re-signed Jadeveon Clowney, big run stuffer. The Browns are one of the strongest teams now. And their offense is so sick. They have probably the best offensive line. They have the best running back tandem. And they have Deshaun Watson, who I have a top 10 quarterback. And they also have Amari Cooper, who they gave up a 5th-round pick for. The Browns are going to be really solid this year. I think they do come out of the AFC North as the leaders. I have the Chiefs at 5. Once again, similar to the Packers, you lose your best receiver in Tyreek Hill. That is really their Achilles heel. But you did replace him with Sky Moore and Juju Smith-Schuster, who I think are 2 really solid replacements or substitutes, essentially, for Tyreek Hill. You still have Patrick Mahomes, who is my number 1 quarterback. And their defense, if it can be league average, they're going to be still a solid team. And I think that they are going to compete heavily in the AFC West. And their AFC West counterparts are the Chargers, who I have at 4. Justin Herbert, top 5 quarterback. Austin Eckler, I think, is a top 10 running back as well. Their offensive line has gotten really solid. The receiving core is really good with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. You got a really strong defense now with J.C. Jackson, Derwin James, Nick Bosa. You traded for Khalil Mack over the offseason. You have Kenneth Murray at linebacker. The Chargers have a really good team, and I expect a big breakout year from that team. They've been disappointing the past 2 years, not making the playoffs. I thought that last year they had a really good chance to make it, but they're at 4 for me. Rams at 3. They were the Super Bowl winners, and they ended up beating the 2 team in the playoffs. But they did lose Von Miller, who was very impactful in the playoffs. I think he had 5 sacks, and Matthew Stafford kind of was a turnover machine sometimes in the year. I think that he was the reason why they lost some of their games. But at the same time, Matthew Stafford also had a really great playoff performance. You got Cooper Kupp, who's a top 3 receiver. Their offensive line without Andrew Whitworth is going to be really suspect. I don't know how good their offensive line is going to be, and I think that could be their Achilles heel. But the receiving core is good. Matthew Stafford's good. You got a decent running back core with, I think, Sony Michel still on the team? Anyway, you still got Cam Akers, and that defense is always going to be really solid, especially if Aaron Donald continues to play the way he is. So I have the Rams at 3. They're going to be the top or the second seed in the NFC. And then I have the Bucks at 2. Tom Brady is returning. If Tom Brady wasn't returning, the Bucks would be much farther down the list. You still have Mike Evans. You still have Chris Godwin. Still have a strong offensive line. Leonard Fournette is coming back, and that defense is also really good, even though they do have some depth concerns. If you have Tom Brady on your team, you're going to be top 3 seed regardless. I'm having them at 2, and I'm having them coming out of the NFC East with the 1st seed. And then my number 1 team is going to be the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills went blow to blow with the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs last year. They're an extremely strong team. They had another good draft. They had a good offseason, especially gaining depth. The receiver core, you got Stephon Diggs, Jameson Crowder, and with their running backs, they got James Cook, who is good, like 3rd down guy, speed guy. Got Devin Singletary. Their defense is good. Tre'Davious White is coming off of an ACL injury, but this all depends on Josh Allen. I think that Josh Allen, we've seen it the last 2 years. In 2020, he had his breakout year. In 2021, he had his solidifying years that he's a top 3 quarterback. And with what I saw in the playoffs, especially with what Gabriel Davis did, he had 4 touchdowns. I think that the Bills are going to be the best team performing. They might have a little bit of hiccups, but I think that the Bills, Bucks, or Rams, I think any of those 3 could be the number 1. But for me, I'm going to have the Buffalo Bills taking the advantage. But that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. And make sure you let me know your thoughts and your power rankings, where you think your team's going to end up in the comments.